Wicked problems, that's a term that's used to describe some of the most challenging social issues of our time.
Wicked problems require a reframing of success. While never fully solved, success in wicked problems means making a difference toward or having an impact on improved outcomes and reduced risk.
And I'm not sure that a lot of people may see this as a wicked problem, so we'll put it out there anyway, and that's consumerism. And consumerism meaning that major focus on economic improvement is based on what people buy.
Living green or sustainably is about more than saving on your electric bill and doing your part to protect natural resources. It is about a safer and healthier life for you and your family without sacrificing style, quality, or budget. This is a movement to provide all of us with clean air to breathe and water to drink, safe, healthy food to eat, and places to live, and energy to run the places where we live, learn, work, and play. Join your hosts, Marla Esser-Close, the Green Home Coach, and Tony Pratte of the Sound Room to learn how everyday green homes work for you, your family, and your community.
Hey, y'all. It's Marla, the Green Home Coach, live at Shock City Studios in downtown St. Louis, Missouri with
Tony Pratte.
We're having fun today.
Always have fun when we're in studio.
I know, but it's so much more fun when we get to do it face-to-face and get in this wonderful studio.
There's a different energy.
There is different energy.
Really, this is where it all started, right?
It is where it all started. And if y'all have been listening to us for a while, then you maybe have followed our journey through. We started here at Shock City Studios back in 2016, I think.
So long ago.
I know, that was a long time ago. And whenever we come back to studio here in St. Louis, we almost always work with Sam here at Shock City Studios, and he just makes it a lot of extra fun.
No, I think it was 2015.
Who's counting?
Yeah. 7 years, not 6.
A lot of water's run under the bridge since then, folks. Just a little bit, but that's all good. So this whole Wicked Problems series that we've been doing has been an opportunity for us to just put some topics on the table that don't necessarily have an answer, or they may have multiple answers.
And they have no right answer.
Well, yeah, exactly. So this whole idea of consumerism, kind of a word that's being bandied about right now, but is tightly tied to how we buy the stuff we buy and why that's a problem. And one of the key theories that's been put out there, I guess you could call it other things than just a theory, but we'll use that word for now, is that our focus on buying stuff is also leading to tremendous amounts of waste. It is also leading to a very sped up use of our natural resources to create these products for people to buy. And that a lot of times this stuff is just on a linear basis. It goes from being produced to being purchased to being used and to being thrown away. So there's a lot of different challenges, a lot of different issues wrapped around this topic, I say in air quotes, of consumerism. And what really got me the other day was when I was reading an article about my hometown, about Oklahoma City. So I'm going to just put it out there, y'all. It's based on retail. So it was talking about the glory of retail because Oklahoma City is so dependent. Most of our coffers are filled through sales tax, through the sales of goods. Mm-hmm. And that really got me thinking, wow, is that happening in a lot of places? And is that helping to drive this push to buy? Because that's how cities and municipalities get income.
You know, that's a great point. Just think of how we are here in St. Louis County, especially. You have all these municipalities fighting over each other to get big box stores to move, and they give incentives to move 2 miles down the road because it's a different municipality, and that those dollars, those tax dollars, go from one municipality to the other.
But they make tax deals so often to attract these people to move.
I know.
So it's like, does it really end up benefiting them?
They don't. If you ask me, they don't benefit the municipalities at all.
And if I remember correctly from when I lived here, some of our property tax does typically go to a municipality where you live, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so what will happen is the property tax, part of it will go to the education district,
right?
The fire district, police district, all of that.
And that's pretty standard.
And then some goes to the county itself for the bigger municipal, not
services,
the bigger infrastructure that they have to pay for. Some of it will go to Forest Park,
right?
The museums, things like that.
So every municipality really has its own definition or its own what sources they use. And I guess it's written into their city bylaws or something.
Absolutely.
So your local city governments are determining what is used to fund the city.
Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, all the little municipalities will have their own sales tax.
Oh, yeah. And then they get added on top of each other.
Yep.
But tax is how governments get funded, different kinds of taxes. And it's, as much as we all gripe about paying taxes, we get a lot of services for paying that tax money. So I will freely admit that. But this whole idea of stuff, and lots of stuff, has really ramped up. And I feel like in our lifetime. And I know the conversations that I have with my mother and conversations I used to have with my grandmother felt really, really different around stuff, especially my grandmother, who was, a young woman during the Depression and, really had that waste not, want not mentality. And then we go to my mom's generation, my mom and dad's generation, who were children during World War II, and then spending their glory years or teenage years in the 50s when everything was just happening. There was so much happening after the war and so many new innovations. And I think they'd come out of this time of scarcity between the Depression and the war, and then all these new things were possible.
Well, that's exactly what happened. They went from scarce of materials, kind of like what we're seeing today, but even on steroids back then.
Right.
And then, they came of age while dealing with that into a booming economy a decade later where money wasn't an issue, the availability of stuff wasn't an issue, you had disposable income, it was easy to buy stuff.
And it was how we got the economy back on track, was by pumping that money into buying stuff and creating more jobs, creating more neighborhoods. And
well, part of that was employing all the soldiers that came home from all the wars.
Yeah. So we start with this idea that you need all these things to be more comfortable, to have a better life, and we move forward from there. And I remember as a kid when we first got soda in plastic bottles, and we were so excited because they didn't break.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't realize, I don't think at the time, the impact that would have, and how this idea of convenience merged with consumerism to keep things going. And sometimes just to make them. I remember trying an experiment once to buy things all made in America. And that was 10 years ago. And that was really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now it's shifting. We're making more things again, which is good. But balance seems to happen through the extremes. Well, let's go that route.
And what you're describing, there's a couple of theories in marketing where you're usually one of two companies. You're a company who notices a need and develops a product or service to solve that need.
Okay.
Or you develop a product or service and create the need.
Okay.
So you're soda and plastic.
Yeah.
People didn't need soda.
Nope.
Somebody came up with a cheaper way to package this, thought they could make more money, created the image and the lifestyle of convenience and not having to worry about things dropping and all that without worrying about the impact, all because it would be more profitable.
Right. So we actually had a system before the advent of that one-time use plastic for soda bottles. We had a system that reused the glass bottles.
Worked really well.
I got my deposit money because, my sisters and I would go collect the bottles, and Mom would let us keep the money when we collected them and took them in for their deposits. And actually that system has been tried again in some municipalities, and mixed success from what I've heard. But we had I think this even into the 60s and 70s, this still growing coming of age feeling that, we were getting all these new and exciting products and innovations, and that you needed those, you thought you needed those things in order to have a good life. But I feel a lot like life sped up there for a few decades, and that we were moving faster. And as we moved faster, we needed more convenience items because we didn't have time to sit still. And it really kind of started to feel like a little bit of a vicious cycle when I look back.
Well, and that's how innovation works. It takes time for society to evolve.
It does.
So from 19th century through 20th century, we had some innovations, but where did most of them show up? Toward the end of the 20th century, right?
It definitely has exponentially grown.
They speed up.
Yep.
You start to see one, then there's another. And now the third one, the gap between the second and third innovation is less than the first and second. So that keeps getting cut to where today there's innovations going on all the time. We're on innovation overload. We don't even notice them anymore. And that's scary.
Well, it kind of feels like that with stuff. We're on overload. There's so much stuff. I mean, walk into the store and who needs 17 choices of beans?
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, really? And I've gotten to the point where I really enjoy going to smaller grocery stores. We go local as much as we can and utilize mainly smaller grocery stores because I don't have to make a choice between 17 different items. And I don't have to walk 3 miles to get 1 or 2 things that I need in the grocery store. And do I pay a little bit more money? Probably. But maybe not, right? That avoided cost of my extra time, my extra hassle definitely does have a cost in the whole scheme of things. And we forget that. We forget all of these other costs that are associated with any of the stuff that we buy. And that's becoming also a big part of the picture because we're now asking companies to look at the things they produce in a circle as opposed to a straight line. So this linear way of thinking, you bring raw materials out of the ground, out of the sky, wherever you're bringing raw materials. You use those to manufacture a product. You transport and sell the product in packaging usually, right? The consumer purchases that packaging and that product, usually disposes of the packaging, uses the product, hopefully more than once, and then disposes of the product.
Yeah, but the old way of thinking was once that customer purchased it and took it home, we're done.
Correct. That has been the way of thinking. But now how has it changed?
Well, now...
Or changing. It's not changed completely yet.
Instead of your linear economy, we're asking about the whole circular economy, which means I'm still responsible for that as it makes its way through the use, is disposed, any kind of landfill. What's the impact on that? Is it going to be something that's going to degrade easily? Is it something that, nope, you can't throw it away. You've got to, take it to a recycling center, whatever that case may be. That company is being asked to look at it all the way through the life cycle of the product, not just the transfer from, my factory to the retailer,
right,
and really walking away. Now it's the retailer to the consumer. That's their responsibility. No. You as a manufacturer have to worry about everything up until the point it is disposed of.
So long ago when I was first really learning a lot more about this whole realm of sustainability, there was a book that many of us read that talked about the circular nature of things in nature, how everything in nature is used.
Yeah.
And every output from one process becomes an input for another process. And that really got me thinking. And when you look at how we manufacture and use stuff, and then you compare it to how nature uses stuff, it's kind of like, whoa, that's a big, big miss. And so this whole idea of looking at things in that circle, in that life cycle assessment, it's actually kind of really going back to the way nature does things.
Well, you could think of things as nature is the most efficient manufacturer there is.
Well, this is true.
When you really think about it.
And it's some beautiful inventions, too.
Cycle of life, right?
Right. Want to find and sell the value of green homes and features in your clients' projects and homes? I'm Marla Close, the Green Home Coach, and I have built What Makes a Green Home Green audio program just for you. This program offers an easy-to-understand language, audio trainings that are easy to consume on the go, with resource guides to help you absorb the information and reference it easily in your day-to-day activity. Your investment in this green home knowledge could unlock thousands of dollars more in business for your home projects. Check out What Makes a Green Home Green and how it will help you find and sell the value of green homes and features in your clients' projects and homes. greenhomecoach.com/homepro. Yeah, I think so many people feel like stuff is a status symbol.
Oh, absolutely. They do.
And it's interesting to look generations as they get younger and how they, as a demographic, so as a whole cohort, not individuals, about how they look at things differently from the generations that are ahead of them. And there seems to be, well, there is less and less emphasis on stuff the younger you go. And we've seen, and it was even during COVID, we saw a lot of this emphasis on experiences over things. And a lot of, especially before they were having families, really valuing the experiences to the point that they would have a very small place to live so that they could allocate funds to go do the kinds of things they wanted. So there's been a shift, but we have all these different generations with different ways of viewing and being in our world.
Well, you even get into each individual generation and you see certain segments of that generation do the same thing. I mean, I'm night and day different from my friends. You know, a lot of my friends, they have really nice houses, pools, boats.
All the trappings.
All the toys, right? And I just look at it as, oh, that's great. I don't want to take the time to maintain any of that stuff.
Right. Well, and as, when my kids were growing up, we had this vacation home, the boat, the jet ski.
Yeah.
And we loved being able to have that for the kids, for them to grow up with. But it was a lot of time to maintain all that. And very few times did we get to relax and enjoy it because we were always the ones hosting and maintaining and putting it all together. And I love having a simpler life now because there's just fewer things to have to keep up with. And that leaves more time to do the things that we really do want to do.
Well, I have the life where I get to experience things.
Right.
Because I have a smaller house that I deal,
back to trade-offs, aren't we?
With maintenance. I got to deal with the maintenance all the time. With all the rain we've been having, like we talked about in our weather issue, I'm up there every once in a while patching holes in the roof because it's just overwhelming it. But, okay, I can give up a couple hours here and there, maintain my smaller space, and then have time to do things like get an MBA or travel or...
You don't do any of those things. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So the other thing that was really interesting to observe kind of in the whole realm of consumerism was the very beginning of the pandemic. So many people started buying up commodity items.
Yeah.
And, some of it was out of fear. Some of it was out of greed. And I'm not sure what else. But we'd buy from less than traditional sources a lot of times. Like, I'm not a big user of traditional grocery stores, and I order some things from very specific companies online that I want to support and that I really enjoy their things, their items when I do need them. So we weren't as impacted by all the shortages and the buy-ups and stuff that happened because I don't shop that way. We don't shop that way. But it was very interesting to hear people come back from the grocery store and say there was no toilet paper on the shelves or there was no milk or whatever their product of the day was and how much that was affecting them. Yet other people would have garages full of toilet paper because they'd hoarded all this. And it just kind of shined this really bright light on this whole aspect of consumerism and how we value stuff and how we felt what was important. I'm still not quite sure what spurred the run on toilet paper, but I'm sure we'd get some comments about that.
Well, probably fear.
Yeah, but why just toilet paper? I mean, I don't know. It certainly has kicked up bidet sales.
Yeah. Not every bathroom has room for a bidet, though.
Oh, no, you can buy a bidet seat, so it's
okay.
fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's actually some pretty good ones out here. So yes, many of us have explored things that are done in other cultures. Europeans kind of laugh at us for toilet paper use. And yes, we've had some very interesting discussions about toilet paper because of their tie to forests and other wood and paper products, but that's for another day, or we'll link it in the show notes.
We already did one on recycled toilet paper.
We've done a couple on toilet paper. So I will put those in the show notes because there's some interesting discussions in there about how that actually plays into a lot of other realms as well. But at any rate, so that will go as an unanswered question as what exactly got people so excited about buying lots of toilet paper. But it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And when it happened, it exposed some major flaws in our system.
No, the supply chain just couldn't keep up.
And we couldn't. What was so interesting to know is that we had been more service-based before the pandemic struck. And then when we all got, quote unquote, sent home or sent to our rooms, we started buying stuff like crazy. And I think a lot of it's because we were all nesting. We were preparing our homes to have us there more.
I missed out on that because my life didn't change.
Yours didn't. Ours didn't change much either.
Yeah,
because I had home office. We're both already home.
Right. You did that, but I had to go into work every day. I had to go into the office
you're an
every
essential
day.
worker.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to observe all this when you and I both were not being near as affected for different reasons, but watching all this going on around us. But the flaws it exposed in our systems, in our supply chain. And I thought, oh, maybe this is going to help people to understand they don't need all this stuff. But
you would hope.
It seems like it just kind of shifted.
Yeah. You know, when it comes to buying things, the psychology of it is just immense. And that's really what it comes down to. Consumerism's built on psychology.
Oh, absolutely.
Psychology and understanding human behavior.
Oh, yeah.
Understanding that a segment of the population is really going to want something because somebody else wants it.
Well, and this is a huge measure of our economic well-being is how much stuff people are buying.
Yeah.
Which, might be part of the challenge right there is that we maybe need to change how we measure.
When the economy is booming, I mean, you look at same-store sales, you look at, the whole consumer spending. These are the metrics that they follow to where if consumer spending drops 10% a month, everybody's going to sit there and say, what's going on?
So how do we find a solution where we're not as reliant on things being produced, bought, sold, and disposed of, but we still encourage economic growth?
Well, so this was the whole discussion from the 50s and 60s that flipped in the 70s and 80s. Things were made here. They were made for lifetime use. They were made well. They were very expensive.
And ancillary jobs revolved around repair, maintenance, and upgrading those items.
Yes. Now, 70s, 80s roll in. You start to see more overseas goods that were made cheaper, that were cheaper to purchase, yet didn't last as long.
Sometimes didn't last a day.
Those goods really were not made to be repaired. So while it's half the price, I'm going to buy this.
But you had to buy 3 of them.
No, I only got to buy 1 now.
No, but you had to buy 2 more because that one broke. And you had to buy a replacement, and then that one broke.
Absolutely.
And you had to buy a second replacement.
Over time, I did.
Right.
But nobody's thinking about that. They're thinking about the first-time cost. They're thinking about the here and now. The short-term cost of this is X. My budget is Y. I'm going to stretch my budget by buying this.
So now we're back to interest groups, because if we change how we manufacture things so that they last longer, now we've impacted that company's numbers because they're not selling as much. And, it's kind of like if a better roof is on a house, then it doesn't need to be replaced as often, which impacts the roofing companies and the shingle companies. And so there's all these downstream things that happen. And I think a lot of us have become very dependent on those ways, hence the interest groups that we've talked about in other podcasts. And it's just, I think it's going to have to be a shift in how we think and how we measure our success.
Well, it has to be a shift from short-term thinking to long-term thinking.
Oh, wait, we talk about that with homes too, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Go figure.
It's amazing how it's all connected.
Yeah. How about that? I know.
Almost like it was planned.
Tongue in cheek, folks. Tongue in cheek. So a lot of our issues, matter of fact, a lot of our wicked problems that we're dealing with right now do center around short-term mentality as opposed to long-term mentality.
It's all about understanding the unintended consequences of every decision and understanding the trade-offs of every decision. Yes, item A is twice the price of item B. Item A, though, I'm never going to have to buy a replacement. So is it better for me to spend the money now or spend more money later?
I don't know. It depends if you financed it and the finance people got in on it.
There's always just one thing or another. Always something more with you.
But it's all related.
It is all related.
The more it's like it's like we get on a good thing, we find something that's very helpful, and then it just goes on steroids, and it just becomes this huge overriding concept, like getting 19 different credit card offers in the mail in 2 weeks. All
right. Well, you talk about the finance guy. Let's talk about that really quick.
Let's talk about finance.
With consumerism.
We got a few minutes, and then
we have a few minutes, especially those at higher income levels.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They look at finance as awesome. You're going to give me money. I'm going to buy something. You're basically paying me to buy it because I keep my money in the market doing whatever.
As long as it's making more money than you're spending on interest, yes.
Money's cheap. They continue to buy things because for them, there's no cost to doing business.
Okay.
That is how a certain segment of the economy works, plain and simple. Another segment looks at that as, I can stretch my short-term budget and deal with it later, not understanding the full financial implications of later.
Which is what many people do.
Yep.
And that gets into all kinds of other discussions with savings and where capital's being used. And, oh my gosh, it all gets very complicated.
Financing, we can get into a lot.
It gets very complicated. So during the pandemic and post-pandemic, supply chains have been disrupted. And, I got to the point, and many of our friends did as well, where when we got a substitution for something, that's okay. We were just happy to have it.
Right.
And I find that's not sticking. Now we want what we want again. And it feels different right now because we're still not out of supply chain issues. But I don't know if we've really learned enough from this.
Well, I think, you had made the point too, that kind of ties into this. I think people want to get back to normal, their version of normal, right. Not understanding that maybe their version of normal and what really is the new normal are no longer in alignment.
That's very true.
My version of, technically, let's say my version of normal is I want what I want. I wander in. It's there on the shelf. I buy it. No, I'm going to order my food with this. This is what I want. Can you give it to me? No? Okay, I'll go somewhere else. Versus the new normal of, I would like this. Okay, great, except this isn't here, so we substitute with it. Great. That should be the answer now, right. Not, that's unacceptable.
Right.
We dealt with this with a job this week. Homeowner had us out there. It was definitely not ready. Yet he threw a fit of, you got to put it in, you got to put it in. And we're just like, fine, we're not responsible for the damage because it's going to get damaged. Put it in after he threw a fit. Whereas other customers that understand what's going on, it's like, the other contractors are behind. We need you to push back a couple weeks. Perfect. We're not going to show up. We know it. We've readjusted the schedule. The new normal is if you are working on a house and you don't have a contractor, you're just relying on it yourself, be lucky and be happy somebody shows up.
Yeah.
Because the way the issues are with labor.
Yeah. That's a whole nother conversation.
You're lucky they showed up.
Yeah. Yeah. This whole idea of how we buy stuff, how we use stuff, and how we dispose of stuff is definitely this is a conversation that's going to keep on going for a while. So stay tuned. We realize that we raise more questions than we offer ideas for solutions here on the Wicked Problem episodes. But we hope we've got you scratching your head a little bit. And I would say my parting words on consumerism is think about what you use and buy. And, it's kind of back to just use what you need. Save some for the rest of us and share where possible, but be mindful. I think that's probably the biggest thing I've seen in our life, and one of the things that we've really worked to focus on is just being mindful about what we buy, what we bring into our home, and trying to support our local community as much as we can in the process. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Mine is, you have to understand normal has shifted.
Oh, boy.
And you need to start to realign your priorities to that new normal.
So new normal on an individual basis is affected by the new normal on the big basis. So you got to figure out where you fit in that. Is that what
exactly
you're saying?
Right.
Okay, fair enough. Well, there you go, folks. A little mindfulness to round out our conversation. And as always, we look forward to having you on our next episode. And in the meanwhile, have a great green day.
That wraps this episode of the Everyday Green Home Podcast. Get the show notes with all the resources mentioned in this episode. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. Want more? Join the Love Your Everyday Green Home private Facebook group for more resources and behind-the-scenes insights. And remember that living a little better and greener is easier than you think.